you. Well, it's lovely to see you all here. I've had in my head over a week this saying, isn't it wonderful and joyful when friends come together in unity? And it's kind of been in my head all week. I don't normally say that, but I thought I have got to say it today. We have some people joining online, so it's lovely to see you all online. Good afternoon. And and so welcome. So it is a joyful day, it's a blessed day. It's wonderful to be here in this beautiful oasis of the Friends Meeting House and the garden and just getting together. So we will light the candle. I have the Christ-like candle there. And we light that to represent the inner light that we are, that we forget that we have in the day-to-day life and its challenges and demands. But there's a light within all of us that just wants to be known and seen. So let's take a moment just to look at the light as you can. If you can see the light, just to recognise that light and to know that that light, as it shines, is that outer representation of the light that we are. And it helps us get centred, get present to being here after the journeys and the travelling. Just to pause and breathe and relax and say, I'm here, I'm ready. So with that same awareness of opening to the presence, of recognising that that presence is our presence also, let us speak the opening invocation that's in the programme. I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love and wisdom. I acknowledge thy presence and thy power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase my mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to thy perfect will. So let's keep this awareness, that energy quiet and still for a few more moments as we allow ourselves to be immersed in the presence.
Continuing our theme for today, the daily word is gratitude. And the affirmation is, I am gratefully and wonderfully blessed. Henry David Thoreau wrote, I am grateful for what I am and for what I have. My thanksgiving is perpetual. An attitude of thankfulness serves me well when I consider the many blessings for which I am grateful. In a quiet moment, I open mind and heart to experience the magnificence and magnitude of all that God is. I consciously know that I am grateful for divine presence in my life. Because of this, I give thanks in advance for the many possibilities and opportunities before me. Gratitude is my heart's response to life's infinite blessing. My gratitude expresses as peace, love, and joy. With anticipation and appreciation for future blessings, I affirm I am gratefully and wonderfully blessed. And the Bible verse is from Psalms. I praise you, for I am awesomely and wonderfully made. Woo! That's a good one, isn't it? So we'll say the affirmation together 3 times. The first time as I, the second time as you, and the third time as we. I am gratefully and wonderfully blessed. You are gratefully and wonderfully blessed. We are gratefully and wonderfully blessed. Someday now I wait for thee, ready my God, I will to see. Open my eyes, they look upon you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm certainly grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk. I hope at the end of it you'll be equally grateful. I'm going to start off by making a claim. David and I spoke about this before we started, actually. For me, gratitude is the most important aspect, tool, whatever you want to call it, of a spiritual journey. For me, there is nothing more important than gratitude. So let's start there by just trying to understand what gratitude is, so I can in some way try and prove that claim. And if we look at the Oxford English Dictionary, and for those who are perhaps less familiar with, I'll put that over the microphone. For those who are less familiar with unity, we tend to do something called metaphysical and myotic interpretation. Don't worry what the words mean. It means we start looking at things in a bit more detail. So we go back and start looking at the basics, like what does common sense say things mean? And that's why I've gone to the Oxford English Dictionary first. So the dictionary definition is the quality or condition of being grateful. That's not very helpful, is it? It's kind of, saying the same thing. A warm feeling of goodwill towards a benefactor. Gratefulness. And grateful is pleasing to the mind or to the senses. Agreeable, acceptable. In common parlance, that all sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? But if I think back to when I was a child, thanks seemed to mean something a bit different. Whenever anything was done for me or given to me, I had to say thank you. And if I didn't say thank you, I got a thick ear, or I got yelled at, or I had to give back whatever it was. So actually, this was what I was receiving actually wasn't given, was it? What I was receiving was conditional. The other person gave me something and I had to say thank you back. Well, that's not giving. So to me, that wasn't really constituting gratitude on my behalf, because that's those feelings it was talking about. That wasn't what I was feeling. I was saying thank you because otherwise I'd get a thick ear. And I don't know whether you all had the same problem, but when I got presents, like I sort of got, a 2 and 6 postal order for my birthday. That's 12.5p. Not a lot of money. Then I had to write a thank you letter. And Kimry will know I'm usually a man of very few words from my emails. Thank you letters were, dear Auntie Barbara, thank you for the so-and-so, I also got blah blah blah. I thought that was it. So I was never very good at expressing myself. And I remember when I was 11 doing the 11 plus. For those who are not familiar, in my day you did an 11 plus, which was the exam you took to decide whether you went to grammar school or to secondary modern. And the arithmetic bit of it was easy, and I must have done well on it because I passed the thing. Because when it came to the essay writing, I was hopeless at essay writing. And it wasn't A4 in those days, it was something else. But if you imagine an A3 sheet folded over, so you've got 4 sides of A4, then that's what the exam paper looked like. And the front page was the title. The second page was the instructions and 3 or 4 subjects. And then you had this bit down here and then 2 pages to write on. And the only subject I could pick out from there that I could write about was my room. So I managed on this bit down here to write everything that was in my room. And I managed a sentence up there and I was done, and that was it. So, I couldn't fill any more than that. I was no good at expressing. And that's important because I'm going to come back to it, this thing about expressing. Now, when we look at things sort of metaphysically, we tend to use this book, The Revealing Word. So I know there's a number of you not familiar with unity here today. And this was written largely by our founder, Charles Fillmore, and it gives his understanding of what some of these words mean. So gratitude. Gratitude and thanksgiving are both necessary in demonstrating prosperity through divine law. Be grateful to God and thankful to the friends whom he uses to supply you. All metaphysicians have found by experience that being thankful for what they have increases the flow. Gratitude is a great mind magnet, and when it is expressed, back to the expression thing, from the spiritual standpoint, it is powerfully augmented. So there's some key things in there. Gratitude is something to do with demonstrating prosperity. It's associated with divine law, and it's associated with flow. And it also refers into here being a mind magnet. And that's saying something here about in our consciousness through some way is affecting a flow that's in some way producing prosperity. So what is this thing, flow? And some people may know I've done a number of talks about this where I usually use PowerPoint and things, but I'm not going to do that this afternoon. What do I mean by flow? And more to the point, and I know you've read an Eric Butterworth book, which is great. Eric Butterworth's one of my heroes, wonderful man. Eric Butterworth wrote a book all about flow. And what he means is that it's the pulling from within out. Everything is within us. It is all there. And all we have to do is enable and support that flow, and we generate our life experience. And we tend to do that, the way we kind of affect our consciousness is by affirmation of truth. By affirming truth, we affirm flow, we affirm our reality, we affirm our life experience. And it's key to remember that affirming truth does not make it true. It's true anyway. What we are doing in affirming truth is synchronizing our consciousness to what already is. So what we're actually doing is adjusting this mind magnet thing. I shouldn't do this because I'm not talking about brain really. Mind is more general than that. So we affirm truth, and we're synchronizing our consciousness. And that can also be thought of in terms of prayer. I was to talk once about is life a prayer, came to the conclusion that pretty much yes. So in affirming things, it's kind of prayer, because prayer is everything we're doing and thinking. And Eric says that prayer is the highest experience of living life from within out. So this whole flow thing, prayer is the ultimate of that. I also did talk about prosperity once, where we tried to define what prosperity is. What I came to the conclusion is that prosperity is a feeling. Prosperity isn't how much you have. It isn't how much you get. Prosperity is a feeling. If I feel prosperous, I am prosperous. If I don't feel prosperous, I'm not. And it doesn't matter what I have, how much it flows. If I don't feel prosperous, I'm not. So it is a feeling. And it's a feeling around having the consciousness of the flow of substance. I should just explain again for those who aren't familiar with unity. Substance is a term that we use that relates to this flow that comes through us. So everything that flows from source is substance. What we do with it is up to us. But you could almost look upon substance as kind of like a beneficial, intelligent, large Duracell battery. It's the energy that flows through us, but it has got that benign quality, that compassion, that love. It's that constant flow. So that's kind of what substance is. And how do you make that flow? Well, I love the analogy of a tap. If I've got a tap, this is America, it would be a faucet. And if I've got a tap and I've got a flow of water to it, if I turn it on, it flows. Mm-hmm. But the water has to come out of the tap for anything to go in through the tap. So unless you can express, then you can't get. It doesn't work on a basis you get and then you express. It works on a basis you express and then you get. And the amount you get depends on how much you turn the tap on. And how much you turn the tap on depends on your consciousness. Your consciousness is affected by how much you affirming truth. So you can kind of see this sequence of how this works. And Proverbs puts this very nicely, for it says, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. I am what I think I am." In the eyes of the perceiver, perception is reality. What we think we are is what we are. So if we think of ourselves as prosperous, if I think I'm prosperous, then I am prosperous. As I think in my heart, in my consciousness, so I am. And that all came back, as I said earlier, from an affirmation of truth. And Emerson said, "Gird yourself in incessant affirmations." Incessant. This isn't a one-off. This isn't a case of, if I do this once, that's it, great. This is all about, if I want that flow to happen, I've got to keep the tap open. I've got to keep working on my consciousness. I've got to keep affirming. I've got to be in that space, in that space of consciousness to allow it to happen. So how did Jesus go about this? You're not allowed to answer because we spoke about it last night. Before Jesus performed a miracle, what did he do? And he gave thanks. No. He lifted up and gave thanks. Yeah. So if we refer back to one of the more famous miracles, the feeding of the 5,000, John tells us, Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them. And Matthew says, he looked up to heaven and blessed to me is much the same thing. Blessing and thanks are the same attitude of mind, and broke the loaves. So Jesus did this. Jesus metaphysically went up into his higher consciousness and then gave thanks first, not afterwards. He gave thanks first. And we'll come back to in a moment to what perhaps he was giving thanks for. But also in Matthew, in chapter 11, it says, at that time Jesus said, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants." My understanding of that is the wise and intelligent are the people, think the clever people, the thinking people using their minds to think clever thoughts. But actually, the real essence of consciousness comes from within our infancy. It comes from the primal aspects of what we are. So this thanking is absolutely what Jesus was all about. And if we look to see how this works, I've got an example here. Charles Fillmore wrote a lot of books, and he wrote one all about the mysteries of John. And he gave an example in here about how giving thanks works. A woman who had been left with a large family and no visible means of support related in an experience meeting how wonderfully this law had worked in providing food for her children. In her extremity, she had asked the advice of one who understood the law. I'm talking about the law of supply, the law of mind action, etc. And she had been told to thank God silently for abundant supply on her table, regardless of appearances. She and her children began doing this, and in a short time the increase of food was so great at times that it astonished them. Her grocer's bill was met promptly, and in most marvellous ways when the family was supplied with food. Never after that time did they lack. It works. This isn't just stuff we talk about, it genuinely works. And the daily word, Henry Thoreau, he was talking, what I am and have. My thanksgiving is perpetual, ongoing, all the time. An attitude of thankfulness, we're going to come back to that. I open mind and heart to experience the magnificence and magnitude of all that God is. I give thanks in advance. And gratitude is the heart's response to life's infinite blessings. My gratitude expresses as peace, love and joy. So Jesus may have fed the 5,000, which is fantastic, a specific instance of something happening that produced a result. But actually, what you get isn't just a one-off thing, it's peace, love and joy. Well, that's stunning, isn't it? That's what you get for saying thank you. And that was summed up, I think, sort of earlier in our time in Unity. I think Doreen used to say, act as if you've already received. And that again, it's talking to this perpetual part of this. It isn't a one-off. It's about through your life acting in a consciousness in a way that generates that attitude of gratitude which produces that result. So this flow is the generator of life's experience. And there's a book called The Quest, which those of us who have gone through any of the Unity studying, there's a book which takes about a year to do, where you go through experiential things week on week. And it's a wonderful thing to go through. And that says, we need the feeling, the inner fullness of a grateful heart in order to tap the power within us. And it's marvellous stuff, this. So what is it? So what is gratitude? If you think about gratitude, then you only say thank you when you've received something, typically. So what you're actually doing is affirming, I've got it. Because you wouldn't say thank you, you hadn't. So if you affirm it in advance, then you're affirming in advance that you've got it. So what was Jesus thanking for? To my mind, irrespective of the miracle he was performing, he wasn't thanking for that miracle. He was thanking for that connection with God, that oneness, that consciousness, that everything flowing through him. He was affirming that flow. That's what he was affirming. And out of that, he and we can do anything. So it's all about an attitude of gratitude, another one of Doreen's phrases. This attitude of gratitude present in our lives, if we live it, then we will get everything we want. And we will get that peace, that joy, that love. It is all there for us. And all we have to do is be grateful in advance.
And just take a pause to say thank you, and not just with the words in our heads, but the feeling in our hearts of thank you. Thank you for the place, the building that enables us to meet here. And thank you for each one of us for making this afternoon the day that it is, the wonderful day. Statement that we've got, and I thought with this wonderful energy we'll affirm it for ourselves and all that we represent here together in the programme. We provide a loving and welcoming environment where we nurture a spiritual way of living. Together with Spirit, we create abundant and healthy lives through prayer, learning, empowerment and joy. We celebrate, bless, and appreciate our oneness. Sorry, you missed it. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, that was meant to be, with God. bless you. We're going to